Science suggests that at the moment of the beginning of our universe, there had to be activity in at least 9 dimensions of space. If there weren't, we wouldn't get the perfect weights of protons and electrons, and life wouldn't be possible in this universe. So what is this dimension of space and this dimension of time? Because what we're finding is evidence to suggest that there's a God out there, and he's outside of our space-time dimension. And what does that mean? Well, let's look at first space. The first dimension of space is just length. There's one way to measure this lengthwise, and it's just, hey, how long is this thing? The second dimension must be perpendicular to this. So we're dealing with length and width. So now length and width can describe a surface, known mathematically and physically as a plane. This tabletop is a surface, and this plane could go infinitely in each direction. The third dimension of space would be height. And so once we get height and it's perpendicular to the previous 2 dimensions, height comes straight up and is perpendicular to both length and perpendicular, forms a right angle to the width. So it creates the 3-dimensional space in which we live. Now, if we look at where God would dwell as far as time could go, well, he's outside of our space-time dimension, so if he dwells in at least one more dimension of time, then that would explain a lot of prophecy and a lot of other things. In the Bible, it speaks of God had this plan to redeem us before time began, before our time began. Our time begins at the beginning of the creation of this universe. In Genesis, in the beginning, God created. That's the beginning of our timeline. It's a linear thing. It's one-dimensional, and we can't jump off of it in our physical state. Now, meanwhile, God can exist in at least one more dimension of time, so God is not bound by time. He's on this surface, and it can go anywhere. So where is God right now? He's in our past, he's in our present, and he's in our future. There's a biblical precedence for that. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Now, how can he handle the prayers of 7 billion people? No problem. In any one moment of our time, he has an infinite timeline on which to act on us. So he can be in control, and yet this also allows us to have a free will. So this reconciles a very strange idea that doesn't seem to work in just our space-time dimension. How could God be in control and yet give all of us a free will? This helps us understand this. God knows exactly what anybody would or wouldn't do, because he's in the past, he's in the future, and he's in our present. If there was somebody that he was going to create that was really going to mess things up majorly, then he just wouldn't create him. So God is in control, but everybody's got a free will. Why? He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So then, interestingly enough, this also brings us back to how God described himself to Moses. We're told that when Moses was standing before God and God said, hey, look, you're going to be the deliverer. You're going into Egypt and you're going to lead them out. And Moses said, well, who should I tell them you are? When I tell them God sent me, who should I tell you that you are? God's response, tell them I am sent you. God described himself amply in 2 ways, I am. And that's exactly what we see on this plane. When we think about where God dwells, he's everywhere simultaneously. He's in our past, in our future, and he's in our present. So he just is. So he says, I am. When he talks about creation, John chapter 17, Jesus is praying and he's talking to God the Father about the fact that those 2 were together before time began. 2 Timothy chapter 1 talks about this grace that was given to us in Christ Jesus was given to us before time began, before our dimension of time began, which was at the creation of the universe. But God, who made God? That's the other question. Who made God? Nobody. He's always been here. He just is. God says, I am. So a better understanding of space dimensions and time dimensions give us a better concept of how God is in control while we have a free will and many other things, including what happens to us when we die.